Actually, there was one thing I just remembered. I forgot to add in here. And I'll show you that can help you verify that it's working correctly. So we'll talk about that. Talk about some of the main key terms. We're not going to go super in-depth into all the terms. There's all kinds of terminology, but kind of the main stuff that's most important to you guys and what that means. And I've got some resources at the end if you ever want to like dig deeper and look at stuff. Google's got some pretty good online training and stuff that you can look at as well if you want to sort through it. It's a lot, obviously, but because they go into everything. We'll look at some of the key reporting categories. We'll look at dashboards. So there's some pretty simple, easy dashboards that you can set up so you can look at the most important data really fast and easily. And we'll show you how to do that. And we'll show you a little bit of custom reports just so you can see how custom reports work and what's available in the custom reports and give you some additional resources. So that's kind of the main agenda that we're going to cover. That's a really high-level view. That's a lot of stuff actually underneath that. So we'll get into it. All right, so one of the first things I recommend, for those of you just getting this started, you have a little advantage. So, and this is something that we would do for any individual client. If I had a new client come to me and they were just kind of getting stuff set up and going, I would create a Gmail account just for that client. The Gmail account would belong to them, but just a generic account that you use for all your web marketing that you're doing. And set that up in Gmail. Because that's going to connect all your Google properties are going to connect to that Gmail account. So whether you're doing, so if you've already got something, fine, use it. I just like to separate my regular email from my, here's all my Google stuff email. So I'm not necessarily, it just makes it a little easier. It's easier if you want to share that, if you do hire someone in the future or something like that, you can share that Gmail account with them, and it's not going to be your regular email that you're using to do that. So you connect your analytics. I'm going to show you the tag manager, what that is. So that's something that Google added here in the last couple of years, which we'll get into that. And then the other one is called Webmaster Tools or Search Console. So I guess I'll explain these now. So analytics is the basic analytics side of Google, right? Which is tracking all your web traffic and showing you what pages people are visiting, how long are they spending there, all of that. Google added Tag Manager. So part of the challenge you have when you have a website is getting the code on the website so that all this stuff can be tracked. Well, if you start doing any kind of other marketing, if you're doing AdWords, if you're doing Facebook advertising, if you're doing, you have some other tool or system that you use to track web traffic, you have to keep adding more code to your website in order to track all that stuff. Code has to be added there. So Google came up with Tag Manager, which allows you to add code one time to your website. And I'll demonstrate this for you guys. You add the code to your website one time from Tag Manager, and then all you do is sign into Tag Manager and you can add additional code, this tracking codes and measurement codes inside of Tag Manager, and Tag Manager will add it to the website for you. You don't have to go into the back end of your website to do it. Does that make sense at all? So it's really a useful tool. I highly recommend. You don't have to use it to set up Google Analytics. And if you've already got Google Analytics working, you don't have to go back and change it. But you can. especially if you're going to do any other kind of marketing or advertising, and you got to keep adding different tracking codes to your website.
Are these just compatible with kind of across all the different web hosting?
Yes, 100% compatible with any of the different sites out there. It's the same. It's just JavaScript code. Just like it's all JavaScript code that you're adding from all these different things. So the advantage with Google Tag Manager is that it's from Google. So the way that that page loads and how that page loads is going to be more advantageous than adding that code yourself directly. And the method to do that. So I highly recommend using Tag Manager to install the analytics for Google and for other analytics that you may need to add down there. And I'll show you guys what that looks like.
So Google puts that on the website?
You have to add it. You still have to add the tag to your website. But once that is on your website, now you can sign in to the system and add up more stuff without having to go into the code of your website to do it. So it's a one-time setup in terms of the code on your website, but then anytime you need to add more tracking codes or different JavaScript codes, things like that, then you can just do it in Tag Manager. You don't have to get into it.
Are you going to show us how that works?
Yeah, I'll show you. And then the other one is called Webmaster Tools. It's also called Search Console. So this is another tool from Google that gives you more data. It has analytical information in it, but it's really about search and how you have your website set up to be found, and basically telling Google some important information about your website. But the reason that's important too is because that data can be connected to analytics. We'll talk about that too, and how you can connect these different properties into analytics so you can get more comprehensive information. So we'll look at that. So if you get to any of this, later or something like that, for those of you that are new, I'll give you my card. You can email me and go, what did you said something about this? I can give you some direction on that. But these are your main Google properties that you're going to have that you want to use with a common Gmail account and set up. Let's see. All right, so let's look at, let's do a little demo here, right? So if you put in google.com/analytics, let me get this. Let me get that out of the way. Let's see how well you can see that. Hang on, let me adjust that, my screen. Let's see if we can make this look better. It's like washing everything out. That's better. All right, let's try that. All right, so when you come to the sign in, there's a drop down here, and it gives you a whole list of things. So the main two that we're going to look at are the Google Analytics and the Google Tag Manager. So those are the basically two free tools. These other things on the top, those are like Google's paid platforms, the Analytics 360, the Premium, and Adometry. I don't even know what Adometry is, to tell you the truth. But Google Analytics and Google Tag Manager. So let me show you a Tag Manager first. So Tag Manager is a little nerdy. They've done a lot to clean this up to make it a little bit better. But basically we come in here. Now I have other accounts in here. But the first time you would come in and create an account. So you'd set up your company. Get this out of the way. Put in your website. And then you could choose, is this for web tracking, which is what you guys are doing. If you were doing an app, you can actually set up tracking for mobile apps as well. All your tracking, all the mobile traffic gets tracked anyway. So for your website, so this would just be web. And you got your terms, services. So the first thing it does is give you this code then that you need to add to your website. And it gives you information there. There's a quick start guide on where you want to put that. How many of you are on WordPress? Using WordPress, a couple of you? What other platforms you guys using? Squarespace? Squarespace? Shopify? Shopify. So you should be able to, any of those platforms, they probably have a place where you can add third-party code. And WordPress has a plugin that's called, I think it's called Google Tag Manager for WordPress, is the exact name for it, that you can add the plugin and then add the code that way.
Okay.
But there'll be some place on those platforms where you can add tracking code, and you'll just copy that code and stick it in. So then you create a tag, and you only need one of these, which will be for analytics. And it's already got it in here. You just pick the one that you want, which is going to be the universal analytics. And then triggering. Triggering is, you know, what's going to make it actually show up. So I got to put in a tracking ID. So hang on a second here. You'll want to have your analytics already, at least have the account already created. I probably should have done that first. All right, so I'm just going to grab one here. Okay, track type. Most of this is just default settings. Page view, once per event. And then the triggering is on all pages. So you can get into this and specify certain types of tracking that only happen on certain pages. So if you have a thank you page or different things like that, and you want to track conversions, especially if you're doing e-commerce or something like that. So you can set it up so that this particular tag only fires when that page is landed on, which is only a thank you page. It doesn't fire on any other pages. So there's different ways to do that and set that up. So that's kind of why I think it's important to kind of at least know that this is here and available for you to track stuff. So then hit save. So that's really all you have to set up, and then it's going to ask you do you want to publish this? And then you just say, yep, publish it. And so there you go. So then that becomes, let's look at one that we've got set up. You've got this right here where it says GTM NRQ VP5. That's the unique ID for that tag. So when you're, if that comes up, if you're using WordPress plugin or something like that, it'll ask you for that tag.
You'll provide it. You can provide it and they're asking for it.
Yeah. When you're setting up Google Tag Manager. So, so that's really as much as you have to do in there. But if I need to come in here, just so you can see this, and I need to have some other kind of code added to my website for tracking purposes, you can come in here and do this. So they have a lot of preset things. So if you're doing AdWords tracking, if it's from a different website, let's say it's a Facebook pixel. Facebook calls it a pixel. It's just JavaScript tracking code that you use to track when you're using the ad manager. Then you do a custom HTML. So it's just an open space. You just copy and paste that code in to here. And then when you save and publish again, that gets added to the website automatically. You don't have to go sign into the website to do it. You can do it from right here. Let's see. We've got some other ones in here. So LinkedIn, if you're doing LinkedIn advertising, there's a handful of other ones they've got in here, different marketing platforms. Twitter has advertising. So any kind of tracking code that you're going to be using, especially if you're doing any kind of paid advertising, you can add all that stuff through this. So, and it's really easy. If one of my favorite websites to get work done is called Upwork.com, and you can probably pay someone $15 or $20 to set all this up for you. I just want you to know about it, be aware of it. You can always go on to Upwork.com and say, "Hey, I need Google Tag Manager set up," and someone can set it up for you in 5 minutes.
What?
Upwork.com.
Upwork.
It used to be Elance and Odesk, and they combined. Well, Upwork.com.
So you just tell them what you want, I'll do it?
You tell them what you want, tell them what you want to pay for it. People will bid on it and say how much they'll do. You'll get lots of people from all over the world. They'll say, "Yeah, I can do that for you." You just kind of you can look at their history and what jobs they've done. Yeah, no, I use it all the time. because sometimes I get, there are different types of code that are a little more complex. And I mean, I'm not a coder. I don't know this stuff. So I just know what I want, and I just tell them, here's the code. This is what it needs to do. Let's make sure it works. And then I can go back into analytics and see if it's actually working. So, but I just want you to be aware of it so you know. You don't need to know this necessarily. You can always hire someone to do this. All right, so that's the tag manager side and why I think it's important, and I think it's a really good tool. There's a lot of customization that you can do with it, so just kind of have that in your planning for that. All right. The other thing I wanted to mention to you, so there's a, let's see. Google's got a little plugin for Chrome called Google Tag Assistant. And this is actually kind of a cool little tool. So if you just, look up Google Tag Assistant, I forgot to add this in the notes. I meant to do that. It adds a little tool inside of Chrome here. So I don't know if you can see that little tiny icon. So when I go to any website now, what I'm able to do is see what tags are firing on that website. So if I want to verify that my analytics code is actually working on my website, I can use this little tool. So you can see here, it turned green. If I click on it, it'll tell me what's firing. So it tells me the Google Tag Manager fired and that it's firing Google Analytics. So I know that those both are working correctly. So it's a good little tool.
This is also how people can prowl and try to sell you by seeing whether or not your site has Tag Manager set up.
Well, yeah, so I can check anybody's website. So I don't know, I can check one of your guys' websites. Let's see, let's pick a random website. Let's go the Front Range Community College, let's say. What is their website? FRCC?
That's why I get my phone calls today for this stuff.
Oh,
The word might have to just block them because it's ridiculous.
yeah, they'll try to cold call you and sell you.
Frontrange.edu. So let's see if they got any tracking codes. So we'll say enable and refresh. So they've got something called Floodlight Dynamic. I don't know what that is. And then they've got Google Analytics. So those are tracking codes that they've got set up on their website for tracking codes. So it's just a handy tool really for making sure that your stuff's working correctly. All right, then again, to get signed in, you just go to Google Analytics, go to the Sign In tab, and go to Google Analytics. So the first time you sign into this, it's going to automatically start you through the setup process. So it's going to realize, oh, well, you're signed in with whatever Gmail account. You've never set up an analytics account before. And it will just walk you right through the process of getting it set up. So what that will look like, let me see if I can. So let me add a new.
So as long as you have a website, you don't have to be using Google AdWords, correct? To use Amazon.
So AdWords is just an advertising tool. That's all it is, paid advertising. That's it.
The two are
So it's
not.
really about your budget. You know, do you want to spend money to send traffic to your website? Then yeah, you can do that.
But I'm saying you don't have to have AdWords to use Analytics.
No, you do not.
Analytics is just, if you have a website, you're good.
If you have a website, you can use analytics, completely free. Yep.
I was looking here trying to see where, like I have a lot of accounts connected to this one account. It's like, where do I just set up a new account? It really only does it if you're signed in with the new,
If you've never set it up before, it's going to ask you to set it up.
all right, so let's look at the basic setup of an account.
So you can see what needs to be, right? So there's three main categories. There's the account level, the property level, and the view level.
So that's under this admin tab here. So we've got account, property, and view.
So what's the difference? So the quick high-level difference there is your account level is, you know, the account name. You have your main users, so you can add additional users if you need to share access to it.
Users of your company.
Either your company or if you're hiring a marketing agency or something like that.
Okay, not traffic to your site.
Not traffic to your site. This is for people that need to manage the account. And then filters. So there are different filters that can be added to the data to clean up the data. I'm not even going to talk about it. I don't want to. There's ways to filter the data that sometimes you have to do. And if you're getting something weird in your reports, then usually there's some kind of filter you can set up. And usually when I see some strange stuff, I start Googling, hey, I'm seeing this in my Google Analytics, what does this mean? And it's usually somebody that's written an article or something about that. But if you get anything weird like that, you're like, what is this? Just email me. Be happy to check it out. So then at the property level, this is the actual website that you're assigning this to. And the actual tracking code that needs to be used is at that level. And then if you want to link this back to your AdWords account, that's where you would do it there. Again, I'm just trying to give you the high-level, most important stuff in each of those sections. There's all kinds of stuff in there that doesn't really matter, that you don't even need to touch. Unless you know why you need to do that. And then the view level, there's a couple settings that I'll show you in there, but at the view level, you can have multiple different views of the same website. So the most basic view is just everything. Just show me everything. And that's the most basic view. And that's what most people set up. You don't really have to have anything more than that. But if for some reason you were trying to look at data a more unique way, you can actually create a different view of that data. This is also where you set up your goals. So it's always a good idea to try to set up at least a couple of goals. And we'll talk a little bit about that. I'll show it to you. And then you could also do, sometimes this comes in handy with what's called content grouping. So in particular, if you have like a blog, and you want to look at the data in your blog separately from everything else. There's some ways. So those are the main categories. So let me walk you through that real quick so you can see some of that. So these are your main account settings. So the account name, you can put anything you want here. And it gives you a bunch of options
typically what I'll check off here is the Google products and services. Do you want to share this data with them? It's fine. Benchmarking. Benchmarking is just it's just a way that it automatically tracks, you know, your data over time, so that you can kind of see a comparison. And so I always check that off. I usually do check off the tech support as well. So if you do need to get tech support, you can do that. The rest, the account specialist, and that type of stuff, I usually don't do that. And then if they've got any extra, I actually need to do that at some point. They have changes to their data processing, you know, terms of service and stuff like that. So you have to say, yes, I agree, which I need to do on that, but I haven't done that on this account. So that's that. User management. So again, if you want to add users, they need a Gmail account. You just type in their Gmail account and you can give them a certain amount of access, whether that's, you know, can they manage users, can they edit, can they collaborate, can they just read it? So it just depends. If someone's just looking at your stuff, you can add users there. And then filters. Again, there's a couple different filters that you might need to have on an account that you would add here. I don't want to confuse you with that. All right, so that's at the highest account level. And then your property level, this is your property settings. So this is where it's going to give you the actual tracking ID that you're using. You can name this anything you want. So this could be your website name. I usually will put in the website there. What's the main website address? And then what's the default view? So the view is the next thing that we're going to look at. It usually just creates that default view automatically. You don't have to do anything extra. So even if you didn't select this, it would be fine. And then I like to try to choose the industry that the site's about as well, as much as you can. This here's optional, really. This allow manual tagging to override auto tagging. You can add extra data to any links that you share. So especially if you're doing e-commerce, you can add extra campaign data that gives you a little more information. So let me make a note of that at the end. See if we have time. We campaign. How are we doing? All right. We can talk about that more. The other thing you definitely want to turn on, so the default of this, enable demographics and interest reports. So for whatever reason, Google usually has that turned off. You definitely want to turn that on, and that's enable demographics. And there's one other place that you have to, that I'll show you where you have to turn that on as well. It also has this option for enhanced link attribution. So it just adds more data into the report. And again, it's going to default to no, but I would definitely turn that on just so that you can get that little bit of extra data. So again, this is under the property settings, under your main settings. The enable demographics and use enhanced links, I would turn those on. So once you do that, you can save it. Again, you have user management. If you're putting the tracking code in yourself, you know, you're not using Tag Manager, you just need to get the code. This is where you would get the code. you could just copy that and then put that in. So it tells you ideally where you should put that code. It talks a little bit about Tag Manager here as well, but it'll give you the idea. And most of your platforms like Shopify and all that kind of stuff, they have designated spaces. You may not even need to put the code. They may just say, what's your analytics ID, and that's this ID number here. So you just have to put in the ID number, and they've already got that code on the site for you. And then if you are running AdWords and you want to have that data pulled into analytics, which I absolutely recommend, then you can just connect those accounts here. So if you go to Adwords Linking, then you can go, add this particular account. So again, this is where it makes it easier if you're using the same Gmail account for AdWords, analytics, all your different tools, then it's pretty easy to connect. All right, then here's your views. Again, you can create new views, but the default view is all website data. It's already going to be there. And in the view settings, the main thing you're going to put here is, what's the website address, what's the country and the time zone if that's important. You may want to set East Coast or West Coast depending on what you're doing. The other thing that's new, and I'm not sure exactly all the details on this, but as I was prepping for this class, I noticed that, hey, there's a new setting I haven't seen before that Google added, and that's this exclude all hits from known bots and spiders. So there's all kinds of these, they call them spiders. They are out there, they're automated. It's basically computers looking at other computers, and they'll scan your website. And sometimes that gets registered as traffic in your analytics. It's not real traffic, it's a robot. And you really don't want to see it. It's not useful, it's not helpful, it doesn't give you any information, it's not anything there. So I'm not sure how well that works or what it's doing, but I saw that and I'm like, definitely check that, because you want to try to keep out any kind of data that's not a real person actually on your website. So those really are the main settings there. The other thing then is goals. So the most basic goal that you can set up is a form submission. So when someone fills out a form on your website, you can set that up as a goal, and basically it's, did they hit this landing page, the thank you page. So usually when you have a form, you have a thank you page, and the goal is, did someone visit that thank you page? And that will show up then as extra data in the analytics. So you can then track, here was all this traffic that happened. Oh, and actually someone filled out this form. So what happened before that, before they filled out the form? And you'll be able to track that back. So anytime you can add that type of thing where it's a form filled out, if you're doing e-commerce, do you have conversion tracking set up for analytics? So, and when we demonstrate in there a little bit more, I'll show you kind of where some of that stuff shows up and how valuable that information is. So you definitely want to set up conversion tracking, and you can probably go to Shopify's help or something like that and get help with that and make sure that that's set up. It's really, really, really important.
Do you mind going into a new goal? Maybe you can elaborate on the difference between.
Sure. So.
Oh, and mine was different actually.
Yeah, so they've got, different ones like someone placed an order.
I would place order and then check out complete. So to me, that seems like
Yeah, that is the same thing.
it's two different checkboxes. And yeah, oddly, I would play listed.
Yeah, it depends on how you have it set up, but I mean, essentially, either one of those is going to be the same thing. Someone's an order processed, and it got to the completed process of an order. There's different. These are kind of templates to kind of guide you. You don't need the templates necessarily. Someone that really knows what they're doing will just skip all that and just set it up. So if you hired someone, they might set it up. They may not use these templates. But there's different kinds of goals. You could have a goal of, someone signed up for the newsletter. You could have a goal of, they used something, right? They clicked a download link. There's all different ways that you can set up different goals for that. So then if you get into, so let's place an order. What type is it? So you can have duration. Did they see a certain page? Was it an event? The destination would be a thank you page. So like thanks.html. So that would get you to the next page, and you would say, okay, if they got to thank you.html page, then I know that goal was completed. So, and again, if you have Shopify or something like that, check their help because they're probably going to tell you exactly what you need to set up. If you want to assign a value, you don't have to assign a value. If you're doing e-commerce, it's going to track the value anyway. But you may want to say that, I know that when someone signs up for my email newsletter, that's worth $1 or it's worth 50 cents. Because I know that everybody that signs up eventually is going to spend, $100. So you may want to track that as a dollar amount. You don't have to. And then there's some really cool stuff you can do with funnels. So you can see, okay, here's where they came into the funnel at the biggest point. This is the next step of the funnel. You can get really, really drilled down to it if you want to, but you don't have to. But you can do time on site goals. Anybody that spends more than 2 minutes, I want that to be tracked extra. People visit 10 pages or more. I want to track that. I want to see that extra data. So you can kind of see how engaged people are doing, visiting your website.
Your videos.
Did they watch a video? Any of that. So that's the goals. And then content grouping will use, the only time I really use that in particular is for tracking different content like a blog. So by setting up this grouping, there's some extra code that every blog post, we add to every single blog post. So now, and I'll show you back in the ad analytics where I can look at that separately from everything else. Because sometimes I want to look at, I want to look at all my blog posts and see how my blog posts are doing and not compare any of my rest of my traffic. Because a lot of my other pages are just information pages that people are visiting. But my blog's different because are they reading the site? Are they engaging with that content? So I want to separate that stuff out. So you can do that with that. So if you are doing e-commerce, then there is this extra section here where it says enable the e-commerce. I don't know why this isn't on. This should be on. Oh, you need the basic on. The enhanced, I don't know that you necessarily need that, but you do need the basic setup if you want to really track e-commerce separately from other data. If you don't have e-commerce, you don't need that. So that's really the main stuff under the account setup that you need to worry about. All right, so that was that. Okay. So let's look at then, there's a couple other settings that are under the reporting area. So this is our admin tab. We're going to go right into the reporting here. There's a couple other areas. There's some additional settings to set up that I think are important. So the first one is that demographics. So we turned on the demographic tracking in the main settings. If you actually want to see that data, then you have to do an extra step, which I don't understand why they make you do that. But over here under our audience, we've got this demographics. And if you click on the overview, so I'll show you this one. This one's already been set up, so you can see that data. So let me show you one that's not set up. I think I didn't set it up on this one. Yeah. So this is how it's going to look before you turn it on. It's just going to say, do you want to enable this? So I've already enabled it in the main settings that I want it tracked. And then you just got to click on this to enable it. And now it will start tracking the demographics data. Male, female, and ages. And then it also tracks their interests. So Google tracks users. Google basically gives you an ID on your computer in your browser and assigns you an ID. Every website that you visit, everything that you go to and ever doing online, Google is tracking that. Google, based on the time you spend, the pages you visit, what you're looking at, Google puts you in interest categories automatically. Okay?
How do they know your attitude? But where does that come from? Pull that from other stuff.
I don't know how they I honestly don't know how they actually get it, but somehow they do. So a lot of times it's, it's data based on your address. It's data based on your, your internet account.
Have to put it in someone.
If you filled out a survey online somewhere, I mean, all this stuff, Google just, is sucking all that data in and figuring it out. And it's really pretty accurate. So they're really good at capturing the data. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. There's no privacy if you're using the internet. Now, there are ways around that, because you can get, there's a couple different IP changing tools out there that will it will clear out your cache and it will change your IP address for you. Software tools. So if you really don't want it to be tracked, you can prevent it. It might cost you like $7 or $8 a month, to use that software to do that. But one's called, the one I know, just because I can't forget the name, it's called hidemyass.com.
I love it.
Yeah. So it might cost you like $5 a month or something like that. But what it will do is periodically it will change your IP address and it will kind of clear out that tracking data so that, Google or whoever doesn't have any idea who you are, what you're doing. So.
But you couldn't just create the cache and your cookies, or do you use it incognito? Right?
You can do it incognito, but you have to do that all the time. So, you know, and there might be some sites that don't, you know, they may not let you use it, or you may not be able to buy stuff like you normally would. Maybe. I haven't tried that, but yeah, you could. I mean, if you definitely know you don't want to be tracked, just go incognito. That's not going to get tracked. So, but if you really want to be sure, then you want to be, you know, you want an IP address. It's actually an IP address in Florida somewhere, you know, not Colorado, and it's tied to an 80-year-old woman, not to, you know, 40-year-old middle-aged man. So, so that was that one, and there's one other one which is under the Search Console. So under acquisition, there's this category called Search Console. And again, if it's not been set up, this is what it's going to look like. So if you've not set up the Search Console for your website, I mean, you can look it up and see. It's not too hard. It's kind of weird, but it's not too hard. But again, if it's something that you just want to get something done, go to upwork.com, pay someone a little bit of money, and just get it done. But it really designates how Google is going to look at your website. For instance, you know, is your website in all countries, or is it a particular country, like the United States or some other country? So you're specifying that, because you really don't want Google sending traffic to your site. If you're a US based and all your customers are US based and that's your traffic, you don't care for traffic from China or anywhere else. So you can specify that in the Search Console as to that. The other thing that you do in the Search Console is add your what's called a sitemap. So this is really important too for like product pages. So the sitemap basically is a list of every single page on your website. And you only have to add it one time, but then it's connected to Google. So every time you update your site or update the pages, it will then notify through the Search Console and tell Google, hey, I've got new stuff. Come check out my site. And so that's your methodology to let Google know that you're adding new stuff to your site. So again, you just set that up. There's a couple little steps where you have to authorize it, say yes, it's okay, and then you're good to go. So then the data I could see here, if it was connected, would look like this.
Make your head spin.
Yeah. And the main thing I try to look at, because one of the things that's hard to get is what's the keyword data that people are actually using to get to the site. And most of that's been taken out of Google Analytics. You used to be able to see all of it in Google Analytics. But when Google went to secure browsing and secure search, that they have the data, they're just not passing the data on so people can see it. But you get some of it in the Search Console in these queries. So I actually can get some of the keyword data that's kind of been lost most of the time. All right, I think that's it for, so that's the main setup stuff. If you've got all of that set up, then that's a one-time deal. You're done. You don't have to keep doing it or anything like that.
That'll get you making sure you're tracking everything that's really the most important. For them.
So if you mentioned forms.
Yep.
How would you, if you wanted to set up a form?
Yep. So, are you using WordPress? Are you on Squarespace?
Yeah.
So Squarespace should have a form builder built in that you can just create a form. The other thing that you can do is once you have your free Gmail account, Google has a free form builder. So you can go right into there and just go Google Form Builder. Hey, I need to create a new form. Boom. And it'll let you do all kinds of questions, all kinds of types of questions, multiple choice.
How secure is
That it's completely secure.
So if I'm
It's encrypted and everything. If you wanted to put Social Security number or something on there, you can put that on there.
Yeah, for tax purposes, I mean, that,
Yep.
I need tax first.
Yeah, Google Forms are encrypted. So you can totally do that. So you can just have a button on your site that would link to the form that they need to fill out.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's super easy, and then it just collects all that data into a Google spreadsheet that you can do whatever you need to. So
Yeah,
that
just trying to cut down data entry.
correct.
If there was a way I could integrate that into something.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, that would be one way to do it. Because then you can just either import the data, because it's in a sheet, you can download it as a comma delimited file, and you can import it. Yeah, so that's I use that the Google Form Builder all the time. But there's lots of, if you're using WordPress, there's lots of form building tools. But Google is pretty easy. All right, so let's look at just some of the basic key terms when you're looking at the analytics, and then we'll break down kind of the most important stuff here. So when you look at let's see here if I could make this bigger. So some of the most common data you look at is this: sessions, users, page views, pages per session, average session duration, bounce rate. These are kind of the common terms and latency. So let's talk about those. So, and they used to be called visits. They used to be called visits and visitors. But they changed the terminology a little bit because people were not just necessarily visitors. Because if I'm using an app on my phone, a native Android app, for instance, then I'm not really visiting the app. I'm using the app. So that's why they changed the terminology. So a session then is somebody went to your website and they spent time on your website. That's a session. And I think I put it in the notes. If someone opens a browser and they're sitting on your website, but they don't do anything. Yeah, it's on page 3 at the bottom there. Key terms. If they visit your website and let's say they open it up in the browser, but they don't do anything for 30 minutes, then let's say they go back to your site and do something else, that actually will start over a new session. So now you can change that setting, but that's the default, just so you know that that's how that works. So a session is someone went to the website. The user then is the visitor. And so then you see the difference between sessions and users. So obviously a user could come to my website more than once. So that's why you see a difference in numbers. 668 users, but 748 sessions. I mean, some people visited or did something more than once, or there was that 30-minute window of inactivity, and then they were active again.
So it's like you had a different computer, like you put in a laptop and a desktop.
You'd probably register as a different user.
So that'd be double counted.
Yep. Yeah, I know that Google is trying to, I need to look that up. It's been a while since I looked at that, but now that you asked me that question, I'm kind of thinking about that. Because Google would like to unify you as a single entity across all your devices. And I'm not sure if they've figured that out yet or not. But I know that's something that they're at least attempting to do. Because they know that people are using multiple devices and interacting with your stuff in multiple ways. There's other tools out there that do that better. And actually, I'm getting a demo on a product later this week that does exactly that. That actually, because in here, this is anonymous data. I don't see a user's name. I can see where they're at. I can see where they came from. We'll get into all that stuff, but I don't have a name. In particular, like if it's a B2B type situation, so I have other business companies and people at businesses visiting my website, I would like to know what other businesses, who are these businesses? These are all prospects, leads, people that are visiting my website. So there are other tools out there that actually have that higher level of data that goes to the individual. We can actually see who the person was. And get access to that information. But inside of analytics, it's anonymous. So page views then are how many pages did they look at? So even if they just viewed the page for a second, that counted as a page view. Then pages per session. So again, this is just the math of this. There were 748 sessions. 2,199 page views. That's basically 3 pages per session. And then average session duration. So of all those sessions, the average duration was 2 minutes. So, I mean, even just this basic stuff is pretty good information to see. So if you know that your traffic, is, less than 2 pages per session, you kind of know they're not sticking around your website too much. They're not doing too much. Or if your average duration is really low, that's a pretty good sign that you're either not getting the right traffic or there's something wrong with how you're presenting the information on your site.
Is that showing you actual data, like for daily plus a month, or what would you charge?
So you can do this based on any time frame that you want. So the default, what it does on default is just like the last 30 days. But I can change this to whatever time frame I want. So I want to look at the last year, the last 6 months. If I want to go, the previous 30 days and compare that to, compare the previous 30 days to this 30 days, you can change all those settings right here to do that. Whoops, oh, I didn't want to do that. So the other one that's a really good indicator in general is your bounce rate. So bounce rate basically is someone came to the website, they hit a page, and then they left. They didn't go to any other pages. So that's what Google classifies as a bounce. So this is actually a pretty good bounce rate. It's pretty low. So less than 50% bounce rate.
Seems high to me.
Yeah. You know what your bounce rate is?
It's higher, but still 48%.
48 is actually a pretty good bounce rate. Because the challenge that you have is that Google's trying to figure out who you are and what you're about. And the better you do that, the better it can give you targeted traffic. But nobody's perfect, and Google's not perfect either. they're not always the best at sending you traffic that's targeted. And so you do wind up getting what somebody thought was what they were looking for, but then they got to your site and were like, that's not what I want. You know. But there could be other things. Again, if your bounce rate's really high, and we'll show this, so I have questions at the end of this you can really look at. You can look at the bounce rate across all your pages. And if you have a particular page that has a really high bounce rate, you know, I looked at one client's site a while back, and it was their Contact Us page that had the contact form. It had the highest bounce rate on the whole site. And I looked at the page, well, it was set up all wrong. Like there was a bunch of stuff, and then the actual stuff that people needed to see, and then the form was like way, way down. And it's like, well, no wonder the bounce rate's high. People, you know, they wanted to get your phone number, and they had to scroll down, and they didn't want to scroll down. You know, so things like that can help you see on an individual page basis. Do you have a question?
No, actually today, I got a call for a lady for a baby shower. After we talked a while, I called her back. I'm like, I'm just being nosy. How did you find me?
Yeah.
Because I typed in balloon walls in Thornton, and my business popped up.
Yep. So, and the best thing, especially like a local business, what you guys want to make sure you set up is your Google My Business page. So, you know what I'm talking about? That's your Google Map listing.
I think I have.
If you have a physical.
Yeah. Even if you don't have a physical address, you can be a service area. You can be, I service the Denver metro area. So it could be a service area or an actual address. Either way.
Yeah, because they're linked in the map to the metro.
Yep.
My actual website, more specific information.
Yeah. But Google My Business, like that's a free listing, and that's what Google's going to show that first, especially on mobile devices for local business. Yep, just go Google My Business. Yeah, I know. I'm going to give you more to do.
Okay.
Google My Business, check that out. So those are kind of the main things. Obviously, there's lots of stuff in here, and we'll look at some of this, but those are the main key important terms today. All right, so let's look at.
Is there a way that you know that using sites and like copying information?
Copying your stuff? Yeah. So what you can do is Google your own stuff, right? Google your content and see if it's showing up anywhere, if you're concerned about that. And you'll be able to see where that might be coming up. The other thing is there are some tools out there that will actually prevent people from copying your site. I think it's called Copyscape. There's some extra code that you can add to your website that will prevent people from copying it. But the fact that you have a website and it's your content and you created it, you own that. That's yours. It's copyrighted automatically. You don't need to do anything. You don't need to register anything. It's automatically copyrighted. So if you do find somebody that's done it, you can either go to the hosting company that's hosting that account. You can contact them directly. I mean, there are things that you can do to get it right.
Can you go copying in content in the photos or?
Yeah. Photos, images, that's really bad.
Yeah.
People steal images all the time, and that's.
I mean, on one of my sites, I have I do photo credits and make sure that everything's embedded in my photos. So
yeah.
And then I size them differently so that they get them.
Do you put a watermark on it?
Yes. But it's not always, I mean, the content is what.
Yeah. Yeah, check out Copyscape. There's probably some other ones if you Google it.
do, and you have, there's some, every once in a while you'll see one of these sites pop up that's basically, they basically skim data from sites like almost automatically and then dump it onto their site. And every once in a while you'll see one of these pop up, and so it's good just to search your content once in a while just to see if it's showing up somewhere
I'll
else.
change it. I'll adjust it.
Oh my, that's good.
Yeah.
Actually, we did a little, fresh.
Yeah, you're keeping your content fresh.
Right.
Yep, it's authentic, all that. It's good. All right, so we're going to talk about dashboards towards the end. Shortcuts we're not going to worry about, or intelligent events. And then real time, all real time is basically you can just go on there and see what's happening right now on your website. But the main 4 categories we're going to look at are audience, acquisition, behavior, and conversions. So let's just jump into audience. So the main category is what we're looking at here is this audience overview. So again, this is where you can get an idea for whatever time frame. You know, what are the number of sessions, users, page views. And the other thing it shows you is new versus returning. So generally, depending on what your site is, you know, you want to see a mix of that. Over time, you're probably going to figure out, you know, what's best. So am I wanting more new? You know, do I need to increase that, or am I trying to get my visitors to come back? So it shows you that. The other thing that you can look at, now this is something new too here, again, just so you can understand. So User Explorer actually, you know, this is the ID that Google's given to an individual. So you can actually go through, again, it's anonymous data, but it's kind of an interesting way to look at it to see on a individual user level. So this person obviously was really engaged. They've had 6 sessions. Their average session was 5 minutes long. That's probably me. I don't know. You know, it's my client's site, so it's probably me. But, you know, again, here's 5 sessions, 30 seconds per session. You know, so it's kind of interesting data that you can look at there. So Google is trying to get to the specific user more, even though it is pretty anonymous.
So what happens if you put them on this?
So if I drill into this, then it's going to give me more data.
Does it tell you if you are on a web browser versus a mobile?
Yep. Yeah, you can find out everything. So here was the date. Acquisition date's the date they first visited. Where did they come from? It was an organic search.
What's that mean?
So organic versus, well, we'll look at the different traffic types. What organic is, they typed in a search engine, your site came up, and they went to your site. That's organic. Versus a paid search or a social media click, or you know, you send an email with a direct link to your website. Let's see here. So you can see, yeah, so you can say they were on a desktop. Let's expand on this. So you can see what time they were on the site, what page they visited on the site. So the date. So yeah, a lot of data that you can look at there.
So how is that actually? What do you do?
Well, so on an individual basis, probably not that much. And what we'll look at as we go through some of the questions, and you can look at this, it really kind of got to look at some of the actual content on your site and see how people are interacting with the content. That's a lot more actionable that you can look at. And when we get to the questions, we'll get you a better idea. Now, this one doesn't have the demographics. I just set it up, so let me find one that's got the demographics. I think this one does. Nope.
So what do you do for these companies?
What do I do?
Yeah, like on all of those?
We manage their websites. We do some AdWords advertising, a little bit of social, that kind of stuff.
All the stuff that's crazy and.
Yes, that I'm always trying to keep up with.
Can that user explorer data, can that be aggregated?
It is aggregated. Yeah, so when you look at this, I'll show you how it gets aggregated. So again, if you've got the demographics set up, you can see, the average users, male, female. So Bay Area Circuits, they're a circuit board manufacturing company in the Bay Area, obviously. Their number one customer are electrical engineers that design circuit boards. That's their target market. So you can see the age group of that is, 25 to 54 is the biggest segment, and it's mostly males, very few females. So it's pretty easy to look at when we've done other paid advertising targeting. We don't even target females. We actually take females out of the loop and say we're not even going to try to target women because there's so few women electrical engineers. It doesn't even make sense. So we just target even the male category. So that kind of plays out on the website. So you can look at age, gender, get an idea of that. Now, so this gives you a little bit how you can see that aggregated. So here's your 25 to 34. What are the number of sessions, number of new sessions? How many of those are new users? What's their bounce rate? Pages per session. They have e-commerce set up, e-commerce stores. You can see, it actually track the transactions and revenue related to that. So same by gender. Again, male, female. So, they have some female users, but mostly male. And then interest is another category that's kind of tied to that demographics as well. Again,
Is this one you have to enable?
when you enable the demographics, it'll enable the interest with it. Yeah, it's all kind of together there. So you have to enable that in both places, right? In the main settings, and then over here too. So you've got affinities, in market segments, it's just all these different ways that Google's trying to classify people. Again, this is all based on the websites that they visit, and their internet use, and it assigns them into these categories of interest. So where that comes into play later on, that's probably more useful. It's useful for two reasons. One is content. If I see that most of my traffic is a technophile, they obviously like tech stuff, then I probably should have more tech content on my website because that's my top category. But let's say, you know, hey, it's TV lovers. Okay, but they're TV lovers that also are technophiles. What probably is the #1 TV show that they watch? Big Bang Theory. That's probably their favorite TV show, right? So maybe I could do some content around the Big Bang Theory and create content around that. And that might really hit my audience right square in the eyes and drive more traffic and that kind of stuff. So that's where you can draw, you know, kind of get creative in your thinking and do some right angles there where you're kind of trying to connect the two dots of those, of that category to figure out, here's their interest, but what does that really mean? What does that actually translate into in content for my site?
Are you going to go into affinity categories? Where we already are?
Yeah, we can go into that. Let's see what that shows us.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah. So it just breaks those down. But again, you can see based on the actual data, you know, where does that break down in terms of transactions on the site? The other area that this can become important is if you're going to do display ad advertising. So there's search advertising. Google has search advertising where people are searching, looking for something, and your ad shows up. But I can also do display ads, and I can target by interest category. So if I want to tell Google, I know that technophiles is my market, I can actually have display ads target those people across all kinds of different websites. So when I'm on 9news.com or CNN or any of these other news websites, all these news websites are an ad partner for Google. They're displaying Google ads on their website. So you can target people by an interest category on those websites, and that's usually pretty inexpensive traffic, you know, if you've got the budget to spend for it. So that's also where this comes into play. So by looking into your analytics, it gives you a much better idea of what segments you could possibly try to go for to try to get some cheap traffic. You've got the geo, which is language and location. So again, where's, you know, and you can kind of sort through this by country. I can drill down into United States and it'll show me by state, by city. You can drill down into it. Behavior is new versus returning. You know, how many new visitors versus return visitors? What did that translate into the conversions? So this is kind of interesting. So again, number of sessions. You know, how many times was it were those visitors just on the site for one session only? They only came one time and that was it. So you can see of all your sessions, you had 10,000 sessions. The vast majority was a one-time deal. But then, you know, a lot of people came twice. Some people came 3 times. You got all these categories. You know, here's someone that's in that time frame visited the site, you know, 200 times. And then what were the page views related to that? Technology, this is kind of the browser segment. So what browsers are people using? So again, you know, all this stuff's changing all the time. You know, if you have a problem with your website not displaying on, let's say, Internet Explorer, well, is that important or not? Well, I'll go look here, and if I have no visitors from Internet Explorer, then I'm probably not too worried about it. But if I have a pretty large number of people visiting my site from Internet Explorer, then maybe I need to fix that. So network mainly is the, what's their internet service provider?
What would be not set?
What's that?
Number one is not set.
It's just not always tracked. Because a lot of times if you're coming from a bigger company or something like that, the way they have it set up, you may not see that data pass through to know what it is. Mobile, this one's really, really important. So here's just the basic overview of their visitors. How many of those sessions were from the desktop versus mobile versus tablet? Okay. Now for them, everything they do is a custom design. They're not selling widgets. They custom manufacture every single thing that they make. So an engineer has to design it, create a set of data files, upload the data files to them, order what they want, it gets manufactured and shipped to them. Nobody does that on a mobile device. So this really plays out for them. There's never been an order on a mobile device. It hasn't happened. So if they were going to do any kind of marketing or advertising, there's no reason to target mobile users unless it was to if they knew they could target the right person and get them to some other content, but you wouldn't be targeting them for e-commerce. It would make no sense to target a mobile customer for e-commerce. Now, if your product's a $20 product or a $10 product or something like that, that's a consumer-based product, different story. You're going to want to be able to have that kind of mobile access and be able to see that people are placing orders and be able to do that on mobile device.
Did we see, some of this for mobile?
Yep.
So are there specific unique IP addresses between phones and tablets?
Yes. Well, I think they look at, they're tying into operating systems. So they can tell, is it, an Android device? Is it, and what version it is and all that. But yeah, everything has a unique IP address.
Right, but
I don't know that tells you what kind of device it is by the IP address. There's something else. It's looking at it's got to be pulling it from the software, whatever software it's running.
So when I have my desktop up and my laptop here and my tablet here, and I'm trying to look at, I'm bad. And I look at, sometimes the same website.
Yep.
Is that 3 different users?
Yeah, we were kind of talking about that. I think Google is trying to get that consolidated and kind of identifying, okay, if these are all on the same IP address, it is the same different devices, this is the same user, but it's still tracking you by device. So I don't know if they are that sophisticated. I'd have to read up on that and see. It's been a while since I looked at that, but I know that Google's been trying to identify you as the same user, knowing that you have multiple devices. That's something that Google really does understand. Google knows people use all these different devices.
All at the same time.
Exactly. So
And that's what people buy tickets to Hamlet
Yeah.
or whatever it was.
Hamilton, yeah.
Or Hamilton, yeah, too.
Right.
Right, as soon as they go on sale, you got all your devices laid out.
Exactly. Yeah, you're trying to. Google definitely is, and they know that's a challenge. I think for them to try to figure that out, so that for any kind of advertising, especially paid advertising and stuff that you're going to do, how am I going to target and start getting into location-based stuff and all that.
If you use Chrome and you allow into it across those devices,
Yes. Then you are tracked, right?
They could be.
They know for sure because you're signed into your accounts.
Yeah.
So they track you as a single user in that case for sure. And across, so all your stuff's the same in that, and they're able to see they see how you're reacting. And that's why, I mean, Google's changing everything in how they do AdWords, how they do everything, and they've become mobile first. They build for mobile first now. That's their mantra as of sometime last year. Because they're looking at all this data and seeing everything that's happening. So they know that mobile is where they got to build it from.
So I have a Google AdWords account that's dormant at the moment. I've
Yep.
stopped it for probably the last 2 or 3 months because I'm in the process of doing website.
Sure.
So hopefully it's up in the next 2 months. But once I activate it again, I probably need to really look at it and basically redesign campaigns.
I would, because the other thing that Google has just changed with their AdWords is that they've added expanded ads. So they've had the same number of characters in the ads for the last 15 years. They just expanded it. You can now put more text.
Nice.
So, but again, they changed all that for the mobile first strategy. So yeah, you want to go in there and change that. Let's see here. All right, so that's that. Acquisition. So this is how the traffic's coming to your site. We'll scan through some of this, and then we'll go through some of those questions. All right, so again, this is organic search. Sorry, it's kind of crunching this. Again, organic is I typed in a search engine, whether that was Google or any one of them. Direct traffic, they came directly to the website. Referral is another third-party site. So some other site besides a search engine that sent traffic. You know, there's a link on those sites, and they clicked on that link and went to the site. We'll look at some of these real quick. Paid search, social, and display. Display is display ads is part of paid. So paid search is for search ads, and then display is display ads. So if I click on organic search.
Is display AdSense?
No, it's actually used in the AdWords platform to push out display ads.
Okay.
But it gets used through AdSense. So anybody that installs AdSense on their website, they're basically a publisher. So that means I can run my ads on any of those sites. So anybody that's running AdSense, I can target their site with ads and put ads on their site. But I do that through AdWords.
Anybody else do AdWords? No? You do?
So one good option here is to look at the source. So if you want to see, all right, which search engines are sending me the most traffic, this is going to be pretty typical for any site. You know, you're going to see that Google's sending you most of the traffic.
Put AOL on the map there.
What?
AOL still
In the
alive?
past.
Crazy. So then you can also drill down for, you know, any one of these. If it's, the other one that's good to look at is the referral traffic, right? So where's my referral traffic coming from? Who's actually sending me traffic? So I can see these different sites, you know, and maybe I did a guest blog post or, you know, what's the reason why I'm getting traffic from one of these other sites.
Does it break down to social media as well? From like.
Yep, same thing. So I was going to show you that next.
Oh, well, before, may I ask a question on that previous page?
Yeah.
Will you see the exact page?
I think you can drill down. Let's see.
Because I saw one was an IP address, but then other things are like PayPal.
Yeah.
I'm curious if you can get to the exact Like if someone.
Let's see how far we can drill down here. I'm guessing that's probably an internal IP address inside their building. That's why that's showing up. But let's see, PCB shopper. I think you can drill down here and it'll tell you.
Okay.
So
Cool. Yeah, so you could, in theory, if somebody else, like you said, if you were a guest blog and it was on their website, you
Yep.
should see their / Peter's guest blog or whatever.
I think that's where it sent the traffic though. Referral path. Yeah. I want to see that, but I want to see.
Is it not open to?
I feel like there's another level here that tells you that. I'm not seeing it. I thought that it did show you. I know that well, for that particular site, it's been a while since I looked.
I'm curious just because, just like everything, there's something to learn from here. But if you're getting a lot of hits from a particular page, people see what the content and topic of that page
Yeah,
is.
absolutely. I'm not seeing it. I might have to dig around a little bit and see if I can find that for you, and see if it's available, if it's in there. I mean, you can always just Google the site,
Oh, sure.
and see where it's at. But it'd be nice to actually see the specific. And then social, it'll show you all the social sites and how much traffic you're getting from those. And all the important data. If you've got goals set up, if this is where goals come into play, any of your different types of goals that you might have, you can check and see how all that relates to those goals.
So you can have a goal specific to Facebook?
Sure.
So,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you can basically create a goal on almost anything. So then if you were doing AdWords, you can come in here and get more data on the AdWords campaigns, specific AdWords campaigns and see. So, but you just got to connect the account so all that gets connected together. But then you can actually see, what from AdWords resulted in, actual purchase or another goal. Search console. Again, social's got another tab where it just kind of drills down a little bit more for you. In campaigns, you can actually, it's going to automatically do stuff if you've got AdWords set up because it has AdWords campaigns. But you can create your own campaigns. This is what I kind of mentioned, and I'll try to give you a resource link at the end that shows you. So you have the link to the page, and then you add some extra data to it, kind of appending the end of the link that tells Google this is, let's say you want to put a link in your newsletter email. And you add this extra data to it, and so that data is, it was my email newsletter, it was the September newsletter, and that newsletter was about, whatever. Bananas splits. So you put all that information appended to that link. So then that data shows up as extra data in here inside of the analytics. So you can actually get really specific campaign data. All right, quickly.
I'm sorry, may I ask one more question? Can you expand that menu one more time, please?
Under acquisition?
Yeah, so campaigns is this whole section, but then AdWords is its own section. So
Yep.
is the data actually?
There's a lot of crossover. Yeah, a lot of it's the same.
Okay.
The AdWords section has a lot more, but campaigns, anything that is a campaign, which Google AdWords campaign is a campaign. But you can create any kind of campaign you want. And it's all done with how you do the link. Yeah, I'll send you some information on that.
Okay, I feel like
I like
this
that.
is the precise, either confusing by design or exactly where Google has opportunities.
Yeah, it really is up to you as a marketer. How detailed do you want to get in what you do? You want to track every link that you send out, every link you put on social, every link you send out in the email. You want to track that to a specific campaign, and you want to be that, specific about it. You can, and you can track that data separately if that's what you want to do. So that's why it's there. So you can't do it. You don't have to. I mean, there's tons of data here that you can dig into, but yeah, if you really want to get specific and see how specific activities are working, then you can just got to build out that link. And there's a tool that does it for you, basically. But it's just a really long link, so you just have to make sure you hide it or shorten it or whatever. So, and then behavior. So this is really about your content then. How are people interacting with your content? So at the highest level, it's, which pages are getting the most page views. But you can really drill down into that. How many page views, unique page views, average time on that page. Entrance means that's the first page they came to. So they came to that page first versus, they went to the home page and then went to the page. This shows you the average bounce rate, but then again, you can look at the average, you can look at the bounce rate on a per page basis. So this is where I was talking about the content. You can sort, whoops, that's not what I wanted. I can sort this by my bounce rate. So here we go, we have 100% bounce rate on these pages. So what are those pages that I'm getting 100% bounce rate on? Let me get this out of the way for a second. Come on. So you can really drill down. Some of these are like system pages, weird things, nothing really to worry about. But here's a good one. An inside look at manufacturing circuit classics PCBs. Bounce rate's 89%. So it's not really a good piece of content. So that might be a piece of content we want to rewrite or change, or maybe we need to get rid of because it's not really engaging. But then, as you go down this spectrum, you can see,
There's super on pages, unique pages.
Say that again?
So all of these URLs,
Yeah.
they're all unique.
There are, so they have a lot of dynamic content on their site. So there's a lot of like weird stuff, right? Because it's dynamic. They're unique pages, but they're not really unique pages.
So I would imagine.
You know, it's like, because they have a reporting tool, people upload their files and it spits out a report. It's the same page, but then it's unique to that user. So you get a lot of unique
So
stuff.
it's still capturing it in the data here.
Yeah.
Okay. But if you have a page, if you have a website, say it's super basic. and it's
Yeah, they're all static pages. It's
Yeah.
pretty easy to tell.
You have, your home and your contact
Yep.
us and your about
Yep.
whatever. You have a dozen. You should see your dozen pages.
Yeah,
not
let's go.
200.
Yeah. Let's go to, this one has a lot of pages, but not as many. And it doesn't have dynamic content. Yeah. What are Colorado regulations for volunteers and assisted living communities? 100% bounce rate. Like, yeah, maybe that's not a good piece of content. So then other stuff that has zero bounce rate, that means, people are engaging with that.
Do you? I'm sorry. This all is already at the top. Is there a way to filter out your advanced criteria where you don't show bounce rates, like maybe, or the zero? Maybe you only want to look at your bounce rates that are greater than 50%. You do all that here.
Yeah, so there's a lot of, so when you click on this advanced here, so you can search by a specific, so let's say you just want to look at certain pages, that have a certain word in them. You can sort by that. You can have a page that includes certain things. Let's look at site usage. So let's look at bounce rate. I only want to see something greater than, let's say 90. So now I'm only looking at that segment of data. So yeah, so you can filter this different ways. Yeah, you can get in there and play with it. Let's see, what else is important here?
The events. I'll make sure.
Events is good.
This might be something
So events,
you're from your site.
yeah. So the events is something that you can set up. Some of these sites, I was going back to, it's got some default settings now that will track things like downloads and things like that automatically, where it didn't used to do that, but you have to turn that on, which is kind of some of the initial setup that we did. So I haven't seen some of that data come in. On sites where we really wanted to track events, we customized that data. So these are specific events. So they used a calculator. They used a panelizer tool. They, filled out a form. They started live chat. So these are a little more customized events that you can create so that you can track how people are actually using the site and engaging with it. So, but that's stuff that you can set up. You can get someone to set it up, or you can set it up as part of your goals. There's a couple different ways to do that. But yeah, I haven't looked at what their automatic setting does because it's fairly new. And as I was going through this, over the last couple of weeks, I just turned it on a bunch of the sites
So I haven't seen how that data actually looks to see what's going to show up here. So if you've got it turned on, you come back and check and see what they're automatically tracking now, or before they didn't used to track anything. Let's see. Then let's throw in so then conversion. So if you've got any conversion tracking set up, you'll be able to see that. So again, goals count as conversions. So any of your goals that you have set up, you can come in here and look at that and say, all right, here was the goals. Here's how many were completed. If you have the e-commerce turned on, then you can see what's going on with e-commerce. So it'll show you by product. It'll show you the total for the last 30 days. You can look at product performance and see how individual products are doing. You can drill down to the actual transaction level. So I can drill into this transaction, and get some more data on it. So I can add a secondary thing here. Okay, where did that come from? So that was get that out of the way. That was a Google organic. So I know that was the source. So you can always add different criteria here to see that. Another one on e-commerce that's interesting is time to purchase. So this shows you from the time they visited your site to the time they made a purchase, how long did it take? Which is an interesting thing to see. So, how many was 0 days versus, 28 days. So you can see kind of how that breaks down. All right, a couple quick things. We're out of time, but you guys okay if I do a couple more things for you? It's a lot of stuff, isn't it?
There's a lot of stuff.
This is why I'm like, I gotta do like less. So, let me just show you this one thing because I think this is kind of cool. So there's questions that I put in here for you to ask that will help you evaluate the data. So you kind of know where to go, and if you look at these questions, you can kind of dig into those sections and answer those questions. And I basically have shown you every location where all these questions can be answered. But just kind of like, why am I looking here? What am I looking for? Those questions are kind of the highest level, kind of most important questions that will kind of help you evaluate the data. But the one thing, and I'll send you guys a link to this, that we pretty much set this up for all our clients. Let's go to this one here. And there's a lot of free tools under dashboards. What we set up, and I'll send you a link to this, you can add this to your analytics, is this quick dashboard. It shows you visits, pages per visit, page views, unique visitors, visit duration, bounce rate. It also shows you visits by traffic type. So that's your organic, direct, referral, paid. Visits by search engine. So which other sources or search engines sent traffic. And then if we have some keyword data, it tries to pull in the keyword data. There's not a lot of that. It's not that great.
but at least you can see a little bit of the keyword data.
So it has more of everything on the same page.
It's all just one quick dashboard. So in this document I'll send you, there's a link. So you just sign into your analytics, you click on that link, and you can add that dashboard right to your analytics. So it'll be all your data. But the cool thing about the dashboards is I can click here, new dashboard, and they have right here where it says import from gallery. So there's all kinds of really smart people out there that have created all kinds of different dashboards that you can use. And if it'll come up, I don't know why it's not coming up. Come on. Well, that's weird. Ah, here it goes. So this kind of is like all these different dashboards that people came up with, and all you got to do is click on it, add it to your analytics, and now it's in your analytics. Now you can go to that dashboard and look at that data. Some of them are going to be interesting. Some of them may not make any sense because they may be for different criteria. But you know, Google Analytics User Starter Bundle might be a good one to have. Content analysis. So if you want to drill down and see your content a little bit better, maybe that's a good dashboard that you can use. An SEO dashboard, a social media dashboard. So just some different dashboards that pulls all the data that's already inside of Google Analytics and gives you a nice dashboard that you can use. So that's some extra. Get back out of that. Let's see. What else is super important that I want to make sure I tell you? So I'm going to send you links. There's the Analytics Academy that's from Google that it goes in super detail into every little thing of this. They've got lots of videos you can play back, so if you want to dig into it and learn more about it, you can do that. Another nerdy guy that I follow that has some good basic information on Google Tag Manager is called measureschool.com. They have a great YouTube channel that you can, I'm going to make sure you guys get copies of all this too, so you can just click on this. So he's got lots of great YouTube videos where he walks you through step-by-step, especially Google Tag Manager, some of that. Then I'll send you, it's got the link in this to the basic dashboard. All right. That was a huge amount of stuff. So,
Yes, very helpful. What am I looking at?